We would like to thank our sponsors, Keeping It Cultured, where you can find graphic apparel featuring Indigenous-inspired messages. The Juice Box, located on North 58th Street in West Philadelphia, serving organic drinks and more. ESPN Hair Zone, quality professional hairstylists for over 20 years for the West Philadelphia community. Sacred Healing Massages, providing mobile services in the Metro DC and North Virginia areas.
America's Dark-Skinned Past. I'm your host, Tavis Sanders, also known as Red Tail Hawk. I'd like to welcome our co-host, an educator for over 35 years in the public school system, author and publisher of 2 books, Revealing America's Dark-Skinned Past, Volume 1 and Volume 2, and also our co-founder, Red Silver Fox, also known as Renee Sanders.
Greetings, everyone.
Best of all, she my mama. Welcome. Today we're going to be talking about 1619, a really good topic, particularly when we keeping it indigenous, right? And recognizing that a large part of indigenous history has been dismissed and removed from the American story, and how it was established, particularly with regards to 1619 and the stories that have been told over the centuries, how some things have changed, how terms are being changed directly referencing the people, which would really change the course of history here in America.
Yes.
And specifically when we talk about history, right? This is a history show. We are talking about America's dark-skinned past. And I always like to point out that history is being told by the colonizer, from the colonizer's perspective, and in a way that would help the colonizer keep, their system of order going.
Perpetuate their story.
Right, and that leaves things out, and so truths are subjective, particularly when it comes to American history. I mean, it is what it is.
It's like any story that is told. When we both see the same story, but you may tell it with a few different details than the way that I tell the story. That's just human nature.
All right, yeah. And so with those truths being recorded by not just the English European, whom is the colonizing peoples that really perpetuate this 1619 story, and the fact that the first so-called Africans were sold into slavery, 1619 Jamestown. Well, we don't pay attention to all of the things that were happening from other European countries here in America, the Spanish, the French, and the truths that each one of these people were telling as a part of their history.
And a lot of those things still remain in their archives, so it's going to be important for us to go and dig into that information that is there, but we just don't have it available to us.
Greetings. I'm Red Silver Fox, co-founder of Indeed Indigenous Education, and I would like to invite you to visit InDedushop.com. That's InDedushop.com, and help support our mission to educate the public of the omitted history of the brown and dark-skinned indigenous population of the Americas. And as always, we would like to thank you for your support.
Right. And so let's talk about Jamestown for a little bit, right? And let's talk about 1619, and let's speak about what was going on there. Who was there? Let's talk about first who was there, during that time with respects to Jamestown, around the 1609, 1619 type of era.
Well, again, just like you said, we know that there were a lot of countries that were here and that were recording their American stories. Most of those stories were written by people that they called adventurers. And again, these adventurers were most of the time they were self-funding themselves, and that's why the governments chose them. And they were able to do things for the governments.
Okay.
And so when they were writing, when they were recording their story, a lot of times they may kind of add some details there again to make it so that they can maybe get some more funding. So a lot of times some of these stories were a little fanciful, but they were written by, a lot of times, the ones who were the ship captains or the explorers, and these were the people that were recording these stories.
And what were they called? Just for
they were called adventurers.
Okay, so the adventurers were the people that were establishing colonies, basically.
Well, the adventurers were they were the ones that were they were seeking power.
Okay.
They wanted power, and they were rich. They could afford things. They could afford the ships. And so they owned these ships, and so again the governments sometimes would even pay these people
Okay.
to do these things.
Yeah, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves with that one. But with that said, just for if you follow me, then I'm always about what does it mean? What does it mean? And an adventurer, specifically during that era in the 1619, just for prosperity's sake, an adventurer is a person who seeks power, wealth, or social rank by unscrupulous or questionable means. And I reference that to a pirate. Like, ain't that a pirate? Somebody that do things for unscrupulous means? But we're gonna digress for a moment and we'll move forward, right?
Well, that's not really a digression. That's really what the adventurers were, pirates.
Okay,
so it's not a digression, but we'll move forward though.
Okay, well, let's get back to the story of 1619.
Okay.
Because that's what we want to really talk about, the story of 1619. Particularly, my reasoning for doing this is so that we can start to show that there are other perspectives, there's other facts, there are other very relevant information that we're leaving out of this story.
Mm-hmm.
And again, sometimes when you change terms, you change the identification of peoples, and that so much matters.
Oh yeah, well that has happened a lot. Okay, but we'll begin, yes, with the story of 1619.
Okay.
We would like to thank our sponsors, Keeping It Cultured, where you can find graphic apparel featuring indigenous-inspired messages. The Juice Box, located on North 58th Street in West Philadelphia, serving organic drinks and more. ESPN Hair Zone, quality professional hairstylists for over 20 years for the West Philadelphia community. Sacred Healing Massages, providing mobile services in the Metro, D.C., and North Virginia areas.